How much do you think the weapons around Justin Fields, particularly at receiver and running back, will help him be more effective?
It's a great question. And, I'm one of the few people in Chicago that believes in the weapons, but still questions Justin Fields, right? I mean, that's where I sit. And it's like, because like a lot of people are like, oh, DJ Moore on the Bears is going to be crazy, 1,000 yards. And I'm like, are we sure DJ Moore is going to get 1,000 yards? And everybody's like, well, did you see the quarterbacks he was playing with in Carolina? And I was like, yeah, but Justin Fields isn't like that. Justin Fields isn't a pick a favorite target and throw it to him 14 times a game. That's not who he is. And so I'm curious, and I'm cautious as to whether to place that 1,000-yard label on DJ Moore. But the weapons are there. DJ Moore is a bona fide number one receiver in the NFL. Darnell Mooney proved, and he made people question whether or not he was a number one. So the talent is there. We're looking at the tight end position. Cole Kmet, not a huge fan, but he still has room for improvement. Robert Tonyan, another good addition on the tight end side, guys that can catch and be outlets for Justin Fields. And then you mentioned Dante Foreman, who I think is going to be – I think it was probably one of the best signings the Bears had. Dante Foreman was dominant inside the 20-yard line, which is where the Bears struggled the most last year. So a lot of people are big on Khalil Herbert. I'm bigger on Dante Foreman. And Rashawn Johnson, I won't say anything on him until he touches an NFL field. But to answer your question and come back in full circle and answer it quickly, I do think the weapons are good enough for Justin Fields because we all just want everyone, the offense, the receivers, the tight ends, the defense, Justin Fields to be a little bit better. We don't expect you to make the playoffs, but we want you to be better than 3 games and make that go like plus at least 3 or 4 to make everybody feel good in Chicago.
Right. The question I now have is, why is this number for the win total set pretty high? And it's juiced to the over at 7.5. The odds makers are expecting that the Bears win 8 games this year. And listen, we had a BetMGM trader come on the show and said that some of the sharps actually like the Bears this season. Maybe it has something to do with the division being slightly easier, I guess, on paper, just because Aaron Rodgers is now gone and done owning the Chicago Bears. Do you think the Bears win 8 games?
Aaron Rodgers traded in his shares to go to the Jets. I would say this: there's one thing that if you like the over, I don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. Wait, let me start that over again. The Bears fan in me, right? My Homer heart says over without question. That's going to be every year. But the analyst in me thinks it's going to be the under. I think Vegas set the line at that mark so that they can get overzealous Bears fans to put money on the over when that might not be the case. Now, if you are going to make an argument for it, you have to look at the Detroit Lions of last year. They won 9 games. And if you look at the divisional record, they were 5-1. So if the Bears can do something like that in a weak division, as you mentioned, if they can go 4-2, 5-1, something like that, catch people up. They won't go 5-1, maybe 4-2. If they can go 4-2 and get, more than half of that win total out of the way in the division, then they'll be in good shape because their schedule isn't necessarily the toughest, at least going into the season. So that's the way to get to 8. But I think Vegas knows what they're doing, and I think the Bears will end at 7. Miss it by 1 game for whether it be injuries or, how the NFL season ends up, something happens some way. So I think they'll end up at 7, and I think Vegas knows what they're doing by enticing Bears fans to bet that over.
I think there will be a surprise. Who do you think the surprise is going to be? Somebody who just comes out of left field, and there's no handicap for it, but somebody who surprises people, and you're like, damn, didn't know that guy could do that.
Well, I think it might be Mookie. And here's the thing. Any guy you choose, you're going to be like, oh, Mookie, I mean, come on. They can all hit home runs, okay? So any quote-unquote surprise that someone picks, of course they're going to be able to go deep. But Matt said this in the chat, and it's the one reason I didn't go with Luis Robert and Vladdy to advance. I went with Luis Robert and Pete Alonso to advance, even though it's a touch worse value. Or it's more value, but I touch worse odds. I don't think we give Mookie enough credit because he's a leadoff hitter, is what I think. So when you think of him, yes, he can go deep, but he's not one of the names that immediately comes to mind when you're talking about guys who can go yard. But he has 25 home runs. He's already set the Dodgers franchise record this season with 8 leadoff home runs. So it's just the narrative surrounding him, or the fact that he bats at the top of the order, where I think maybe we don't put him in the same pantheon as these other guys, but he can absolutely hit it. We know that.
I'll say this about Mookie. I feel like he is a very smart person and somebody that maybe he will be good at the strategy part of this because I remember covering Mookie Betts when he was for the Red Sox when I was in Fort Myers, and they said out of high school he had one of the best like baseball smart score. They have this like app that they test like acumen for baseball and like pitch selection and like reflexes. And this guy's just really off the charts on just about everything. So maybe he surprises some people. I don't think it's the case. And here's the thing. He could surprise people in the first round, but then not win the home run derby. Because I think these were both good options. And where the MLB draft is kind of tricky, I think, for the casual fan is because these guys still have to go through the minor leagues. None of these players are going to immediately go to the big leagues and provide an impact to this team. That's why I think you just take the best overall pitcher. I don't think it's like super, important to be like, okay, well, our team needs a pitcher right now because, 3 years from now, who knows what you'll need. So I think both of these players are good options. Obviously, the price tag was an issue for Dylan Cruz. But I think both these players are going to make nice impacts for both of these teams down the line. I am a fan of teams that kind of take the more trusted prospect and the guys who have been there, done that in the college ranks, as opposed to some of the high school guys. But like looking at history, there have been some iconic players who have come out of the high school ranks. So I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. I just think that it's probably more of a known commodity when you're choosing somebody who has gone the college route. However, I'll say this about the LSU guys. It's going to be a big culture shock going from playing at LSU, where you have all of these fans who are taking 10,000 Jello shots and following you to the College World Series, to, playing single A ball for the Altoona Curve or wherever these players are going to go. So we'll see how they do in the minors. But overall, I think these are two pretty solid prospects for both the Pirates and the Nationals.
Yeah, I think the Pirates did the right thing. When you read about Skeens, we saw how brilliant he was during the College World Series. This past season went 12-2, 1.69 ERA, and 209 strikeouts over 122 and two-thirds innings. All of the experts were saying this is the best pitching prospect since guys like Garrett Cole, Steven Strasburg, Mark Pryor. Now, Strasburg and Pryor obviously dealt with injuries, but certainly there was no questioning their talent. So I think this was a good pick by the Pirates. I'm thrilled as a Nationals fan. Dylan Cruz is an absolute stud, hit 426, 17 home runs this past season, had an OPS in 71 games of 1.280.
Who is your Monday MVP?
Well, I'm not going off the board. I'm going to go with De La Cruz. I feel so basic and so lame for choosing him, but there's just no denying his talent. And stealing home is, like I said, the fact that he did it, of all the of course he did it. Of course it's De La Cruz, who's been arguably the most exciting player, or certainly I would say top 5 exciting player in baseball since he was called up. He just has that enthusiasm about him that is infectious, which is, and it's not a coincidence that the Reds are playing a hell of a lot better, by the way, that have gone on this run with him in the lineup, because he is that important already. So I hate to take it away from Matt Turner, because I will say making 2 saves on penalty kicks is really impressive. And as someone who has stood in goal and taken a few shots from a former men's national team member to kind of feel like what that is like, once you're there, it's like, I don't know how these guys get a finger on anything. It's incredibly impressive, but I'm going to have to go with De La Cruz.
Are you kidding me? Don't you ever mention the words basic and lame, even in the same minute as talking about Elly De La Cruz. I don't care if you're trying to, put a knock on yourself for choosing him for MVP of the weekend. This guy has been iconic to start the season and start his debut in the major leagues, because not only is the eye test there, when you watch him, you are watching something special, but also the accolades are starting to be there too. This guy's hit for the cycle. He's led his team to a 12-game win streak, and now he's stolen home plate. Stealing home by itself is iconic. You see this. Like I said, it was part of the plot of The Sandlot, because it is that big of a deal, because it takes not only speed, but also the strategy and the baseball smarts to pay attention to when the other team is not paying attention. Elly De La Cruz right now is making a grown man's game look like a kid's game. He is having so much fun out there. He's making these games look like Little League. And over the past 7 games, this guy's raking, hitting .467 with 7 stolen bases. This guy is making a mockery of the major leagues by making it look so damn easy and also breathing some new life into a team that was left for dead. Nobody expected the Reds to be this good, and I think a lot of it has to do with Elly De La Cruz breathing life into this team. So easy MVP for me, Elly De La Cruz of the Reds.